In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the red flags that you have to dodge when you're buying a commercial property. What are those red flags? If you want to know, then stick around. Alright, so when you are looking to buy a commercial property, if the property is tenanted, which means the tenant is doing the business, and more importantly, you are going to go through and read that lease. Now, here is one of the red flag in the lease that you need to look into. Is the rent or the current rent is way above the market rent? If the rent is way above the market rent, is kind of a red flag for you, because sooner or later that lease is going to end and the market rent or the current whatever rent that is going to be adjusted with the market rent, because the tenant is not going to pay that way above the rent. So it is a red flag for you, because you might be thinking, oh, I am buying a 6% cap rate or 7% cap rate, but in 2 years time or 3 years time, when the lease is coming to an end, that rent is actually going to go down because the market rent is way lower than the actual rent. So this is a big red flag to notice and find out how much is the current market rent and how much is the rent that is in the lease. And if the current lease rent is way more than the market rent, that's a red flag for you. The second thing, or the second red flag is shorter lease. Now, I have read many leases being a buyer agent, commercial property. We have been doing that we have been purchasing so many commercial properties, and we can say that we read leases almost regular basis, right? And then we see a lot of different leases, and this lease is technically sometimes it's like a 6 months lease, 1 year lease, 2 years lease. This shorter lease is kind of a red flag. First of all, we need to understand that why landlord actually given the tenant for a shorter period of lease. Why it is 6 months, why it is 1 year, why even 2 years? Because generally a standard practice should be 3/3, 5/5, 4+3, this kind of lease structure. But why it is only 6 months, why it is only 12 months, why it is 24 months? That's the shorter lease. And if it is a short term lease, you need to then further dig out and find out, is there a relations between landlord and the tenant? So basically landlord is trying to get rid of that property, so they have created this lease which is kind of a not so great or good strength lease, and once the property will be sold, then the tenant is going to walk away. So walk away in the sense at the end of the lease term. So but let me give you an example. Let's say a property value is $1 million. So ideally, and a 6% is the market rent there, so technically there will be 60,000 rent. But now think about this. Somebody can put a 2 years lease, and that 2 years lease is, let's say rent is 80,000, and then if you are thinking of buying it in a same 6% return, so technically you can buy this for 1.3 1.4 million nice. Now in the 2 years lease, 60,000 plus 60,000 is only 120,000. So the property value earlier, it was $1 million, and then you can buy that property for 1.3, and even the landlord gets the whole 1.3 million or 1.35, and they have to only pay about 120,000 the lease for the next 2 years, and technically they are still getting about 1.2 or 1.18 million dollars. So the value is 1 million, but they are getting 1.18 million. And why it is happening? Because they have created this short-term lease. Now anytime you see a short-term lease, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you should always have this red flag and do a further due diligence. I'm not saying that all the time this is a problem, but I am saying is that do a further due diligence and find out the tenant is actually, there is not much relationship with the landlord. It's an arm's length lease, and you are happy that what you're buying is the market rate and what you're buying is the current value, and then only you go. But this is a pure red flag for me. If I see a lease which is 6 months or 1 year lease and the rent is a bit inflated as well, I would walk away from that kind of properties. And the third red flag I'll talk about, there is no personal guarantee or a corporate guarantee. Now why it is an important? Because if let's say you signed a 3 years lease, and the company who actually signed up the lease, you don't know, it's like a mom and dad kind of company, and then on top of it there is no personal guarantee. So technically once the property is sold, the tenant can shut down that business, say that, oh, this company is bankrupt and there is no personal guarantee and they can walk away, you can chase after that company, but that company does not have any money, so literally you won't get anything. On the other side, if there is a personal guarantee, then you can go after those directors and recoup that money. So which is why one of the key red flag is that a mom and dad kind of company, but there is no personal guarantee. So the personal guarantee, if it is not there, you would think it's a red flag and do further due diligence, understand that why there is no personal guarantee, and if it is not, how you are protected. So this is another point that I want you to understand. It's a pure red flag, and that you need to do a further due diligence, need to understand that why there is no personal guarantee, and if you are happy with that, then only go ahead and purchase it. So in a nutshell, there are many red flags when you are buying, but these top 3 is the key parts, and as long as you do a further due diligence, as long as you are happy with those in spite of these red flags, then you are buying. Don't be ignorant of buying a commercial property and then all of a sudden you realize that, oh, it's a terrible mistake. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.